Welcome back to Mastering Menopause. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest myths in the world of nutrition and fitness, and that is the myth that the body can only absorb 30 grams of protein per meal. Now, this idea has been floating around for years, but the truth is it's based on outdated information. And I did a bit of a deep dive into the research that debunks this myth. And we'll also be talking about how much protein women really need, especially those of you who are active or are trying to hit specific fitness goals. So let's get into it. This whole 30 grams of protein limit is one of those ideas that keeps getting repeated so often in fitness circles that people just assume it's true. And I hear this all the time. Your body can only absorb 30 grams of protein at one time. And, anything beyond that is going to get wasted or stored as fat. And here's the problem with that. There's no solid scientific basis for this number. And literally, you can type it into Google and you'll see that it is indeed a myth with no scientific studies to support that claim. However, I do have 4 studies that I'm going to reference. So the studies show that your body can actually absorb more protein per meal. So there was a study that I read by Damon A. It was in 2024 called Nutrition Myths and Clarifications. And he explains in that study that our bodies are more adaptable than we give them credit for, and that we can absorb more than just 30 grams of protein in one meal. And when you think about it, like bodybuilders, they don't just have 30 grams of protein per meal. So I know we're not bodybuilders here, but when you hear something like that, you kind of have to think for yourself about that. Is that true? Instead of just assuming that that's true. And there's another great resource that I'm referenced, and this is Harriet Hall's article that she wrote in 2014, Food Myths, What Science Knows and Does Not Know. And so she tackled a lot of misconceptions around food in general, and this 30-gram rule is one of them. And her work kind of highlights our understanding of protein absorption is much more complex than these old school rules would suggest. So again, I'm going to be linking these studies and articles in the show notes if you care to read those for yourself. So let's talk about protein absorption. Digestion is a gradual process. This is why it takes longer for your body to digest protein. That's why it keeps you feeling full. That's why it keeps you feeling satisfied. It's one of the benefits of protein. It's not like you eat 40 grams of protein and your body only uses 30 and throws away the rest, right? Your body is breaking down that protein and uses it over several hours. So that idea that you only absorb protein in one quick burst is just wrong. And the one study that I really found interesting was, and I don't, because it just says G. Wu. His 2016 research, this was a full-on study, not just an article, on food and function, explains that the body can handle much more protein in a single meal. In fact, people who are active, like many of you listening, can consume 40, 50, or even 70 grams of protein per meal, and your body is still able to break it down and use it efficiently. So for those of you that are trying to build muscle or recover from tough workouts, you shouldn't worry about wasting protein. It's not uncommon for me to get anywhere from 50 to 70 grams of protein per my meals, especially my earlier meals. So for my breakfast, I will get like around 60 to 65 grams of protein. That is going to be split up in 2 meals. And then it's not unusual for me to get like another 60 grams of protein for lunch. I've never had any issues as far as that goes. I mean, it took me a while to work up to where I was having that, but definitely no issues as far as the consumption of that. So what does protein do? Again, in Ji Wu's study, protein it plays a vital role in several of your essential body functions beyond just building muscle. So here's just a quick summary of his findings. And again, muscle repair and growth, protein is going to provide those building blocks called amino acids required for that muscle tissue repair and growth. And that's especially important for people that are strength training or doing other physical activities. Hormone production. So proteins are essential for synthesizing hormones that regulate your various bodily functions, including the metabolism and also growth. And then immune function. Proteins are going to help produce antibodies and other components of the immune system, which are critical in fighting infections and maintaining overall health. And then enzyme production. Many enzymes which catalyze chemical reactions in the body, such as digestion, are made of proteins. And then the transport and storage of nutrients, where certain proteins help transport essential nutrients like oxygen via the hemoglobin or store nutrients for later use. Now, another argument that I hear all the time is high protein intake damaging to the kidneys, right? I hear this one. You're going to damage your kidneys. And first of all, let's define high intake. Bodybuilders will get anywhere from 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That's a lot. I don't recommend that for the average person. And I typically would recommend for the average person to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight or ideal body weight. And I personally don't recommend for somebody like, say, you're 200 pounds, like I wouldn't recommend that you go over 160 grams of protein. But if you're, actively trying to build more muscle like myself, like I personally aim for the 1.2 range. So I try to get in 150 to 170 grams of protein per day. So it really is kind of individualized. I really liked Ji Woo's study because it definitely highlighted like this is going to be, it's not a one size fits all by any means. So when I say like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and actually I recommend like 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, because I think that's just easy to understand, but it's going to be based on goals. So with his study, along with other research, it indicates that for healthy individuals, a high protein diet does not cause kidney damage. And so this misconception about protein intake harming kidneys comes from studies done on individuals with pre-existing kidney conditions where excessive protein would put a strain on their already compromised kidneys. So his Woo's research specifically points out that the protein intake levels of 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, which is equivalent to around 150 to 170 grams for many people, are safe and not harmful to kidney function in healthy individuals. And so the kidneys can handle that protein intake as part of a normal function without impacting kidneys. Again, those with pre-existing kidney disease should consult a healthcare provider before increasing their intake. Now, let's talk about specifically women and protein intake. For women, especially those who work out regularly, getting enough protein is crucial. It's not just about muscle repair, and proteins plays a role in hormone balance and overall health. This is why this myth is so damaging for women not eating enough protein, because they've been told that their bodies can't handle it, or you can only absorb 30 grams at a time. And so in reality, women can safely consume much more protein than they think. And research shows, again, safely consuming 150 to 170 grams of protein per day. You can spread that out across meals with anywhere from 30 to 70 grams of protein. And so this is especially important. I can't emphasize this enough for women who are involved in strength training or in endurance sports as well. And so there was another study by Bilzeborough and Mann's 2006 review of dietary protein intake that highlighted that higher protein levels are not only safe, but also beneficial for muscle recovery and overall health. And another study by Millward and Jackson in 2004 on protein energy ratios supports that higher protein consumption for women, particularly those who are sedentary. So older adults, older populations where muscle maintenance becomes even more critical. So if you're active, aiming for 150 to 170 grams of protein a day is not only safe, but it's also ideal. So how can you actually hit these protein goals? And the key is to make sure that you're spreading out your intake throughout the day, right? And incorporating a variety of protein sources, whether that's from whole foods like eggs, chicken, beef, dairy, legumes, supplementing with whey protein. It's absolutely possible to get the amount that you need. And then timing is also important, making sure that you're eating protein after your workouts because that's going to help you with muscle repair and growth. And one thing to keep in mind is don't be afraid to eat larger amounts of protein in one meal. As we've discussed, 30 grams is not the limit. Whether it's 50 or even 70 grams in a single sitting, your body can handle it, especially if you're training hard or trying to reach a specific fitness goal. Now, I will say, like, faster digesting proteins are going to definitely help with this. So like a whey protein powder, that's a fast digesting protein. So if you sat there and ate like 8 ounces of chicken breast, that's a lot, right? So I typically am not eating 8 ounces of chicken. I will do that and put that into like a big bowl. But for me, the way that I'm getting it is like I just put in protein powder into yogurt. That's already like 40 grams of protein there. And then I'll have like cottage cheese, maybe like a boiled egg and, scrambled eggs or something like that. So that's how I'm getting like 70 grams of protein in my 2 breakfasts. And then I actually will like have a can of tuna. A can of tuna is like 29 grams of protein. If you get that bigger one, it's like 42 grams of protein. That was a lot. That's a lot of tuna. But I have done that. I do the tuna with bacon and cheese and then put that on a wrap, and that gets you to about 50 grams of protein right there. So, the next time somebody tells you that you can't absorb more than 30 grams of protein in one meal, then you can confidently debunk that myth. So just point them towards this podcast or to the research that I'm going to link. You can also point them to my Instagram because I just did a post on that as well. Your body is more than capable of handling and benefiting from higher protein intakes, especially if you have specific health and fitness goals. So whether that's muscle growth, recovery, or simply just maintaining a balanced diet, more protein is your friend, not your enemy. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that this episode helped clarify some common misconceptions about protein intake. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And I would love it if you would share this episode with someone who you think might benefit from this information. And as always, feel free to reach out with any questions or suggestions that you might have for future topics. And if you're struggling trying to get in your protein intake, I do have a free 5-day challenge that is geared especially for that. There are videos and recipes and PDFs. Like, it's all built in. It's a 5-day challenge. It's super easy. You don't have to do anything. Those videos are super short. I will link that in the show notes as well. So check that out. And then if you're not in my free No BS Menopause Secrets group, then I would highly suggest that you make your way into that group for some support from like-minded women. I go in there live once a week, sometimes twice a week. So a ton of information is there to be had for you to help support you on your journey. And I will talk to you on Sunday. Bye.